Hampton Leftist live on Sunday. I am with my Fred Hampton Leftist co-host, RJ. RJ, how you doing today?
I'm doing good today, man. It's beautiful, mostly sunny day outside. Still kind of chilly, but I'm having a great day. How about you?
Oh man, you know what? Fuck you. It's rainy. It's cloudy. What in the hell? And you're just like, oh, it's great here. Tooting your own horn. Oh, you know what? This stream is over. I'm done. No, just kidding. No, yeah, there. This has been. Last week was an eventful week. Regarding uh some things that some politicians have said that were deeply inaccurate, especially from a leftist perspective. There was the Chauvin verdict that took that released a pressure valve on the angst and the anger in America. Uh, and there was a whole host of other things that happened last week that we can discuss. Um, and one of the things that has come up on my radar just within the last few moments. Actually, you know what? Let me put this up on the screen. Let me see. Let's see. Let's do this. So as you can see here, it says 46% of Republicans think that the Derek Chauvin guilty verdict is wrong. So this is from a CBS News YouGov poll that was taken. And as you can see, under Republicans is 46% think that it was the wrong verdict compared to Democrats with only 10% and independents 25% respectively. What is your initial thoughts about this, RJ?
I think really it's mostly due to response of the culture war. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Trump has really got the cop vote. I think he got what 90%. 90% of all police precincts and police stations in the country voted for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So this really doesn't surprise me at one bit because now Republicans are all, pro police, don't tread on me or whatever. And I'm not really surprised by that 40% mark. And of course, they're going to say, oh, see, that's just a Trump faction. But in reality, this is what really the Republican Party is. You
Yeah.
know, so when
Mm-hmm.
half of them agree that they got the verdict wrong, when we saw the cops literally kill a man in the streets unlawfully. So this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't surprise me. And independence overall is
Mm-hmm.
really why it's swung in the favor of getting this guy convicted. Because even independents are like, okay, I'm not into this politically at all, but he literally had his knee on his neck for
Mm-hmm.
9 minutes, even after he was unconscious. And people
Mm-hmm.
knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
So there was no excuse to this. So
Yeah.
seeing independents overwhelmingly 75% clip be saying that the trial was fair, and of course Democrats at 90% clip to 10% said it was fair as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, looking at some of the responses, KF Gibson said, "Are we surprised?" And RJ, really, are we really surprised? Let's be real.
Oh no, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, to me, there's absolutely. It's just like, of course, and to be honest with you, even if it said 20% of our Democrats, I would have said I wouldn't have been surprised even at that. If the ratio for Democrats was higher, it just goes to show that the culture war actually does have a direct effect on some of the uh, it has a direct effect on some of the policies that we are fighting for and ones that we're for, like for instance criminal justice reform, because you have a good chunk of the country that honestly thinks that Derek Chauvin did nothing wrong. And this is one of the reasons why the criminal justice system, as we know it, has to be rebuilt. Because if it's not rebuilt, then people will still keep fighting for people like the Derek Chauvins and the Kyle Rittenhouses, you know? Uh, so, yeah, I look at somebody like, what Derek Chauvin did, and people like him have heroes and have sympathizers. And you feel how it's becoming uh, more manifest that we have fascist sympathizers as well as people who have a fascist ideology, even though they themselves don't recognize that they do.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the problem too, because we really have to do better. And it's not the responsibility of leftist jobs to bring everybody to the left. I even say to my liberal
Yeah.
friends too, like, hey, if you could bring some of your liberal friends who are further to the right than you and bring them to the left on a couple of issues, that's a good thing. We shouldn't be all the ones carrying the work. And I don't agree with trying to swing some of these far right lunatics to the left, because that's some of them are beyond reproach. Most of them you could, if you talk about different policies and
Hmm.
talk about really the structural issues of the country, so that could be worked out.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
in general, I think we do have a problem really in this country with criminal justice reform and with the culture war being mixed into it. Because what Donald Trump has really shown, and even Obama too, like he would use culture war as a term of suppression.
Hmm.
Donald Trump uses the culture war to ignite flames.
Hmm.
So for
Yeah.
instance, one thing Obama is good at doing is like for the boycott, the NBA boycott, he suppressed, and a
Yeah.
fire was growing, and Obama just pours water on it and liquidizes a movement.
Yeah.
Trump pours gasoline on embers and it makes an explosion. So it's two
Yeah.
different types of tactics that the culture war can play on a society.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that, I mean, there's really the reform that they're talking about is merely surface level. Um, Even look at the name criminal justice. I mean, there's no reformative justice there. There's no rehabilitation within the system to truly rehabilitate someone. You can't truly rehabilitate someone, by, especially if they are nonviolent, maybe say a nonviolent drug offender, and you place them in prison, and then something happens and you put them in solitary confinement. It doesn't make sense. That's not true rehabilitation. And the thing is that what are you really rehabilitating them from anyway?
Right.
Because sometimes the laws that they break aren't necessarily ethical laws. Like for instance, um, uh, I forgot I think it was Loving versus Virginia. I think it was. It was
Mm-hmm.
a couple that a white man and a black woman, they decided to get married. It was against the law, and they literally had to go to court over it. And of course, they won the case. But the thing is that was an unethical law that was on the books. So by them breaking the law, were they criminals? Not necessarily, because it was an unjust law. And so, as somebody who I honestly think that at the very least, my compromise is decriminalizing all drugs. For someone to be in prison for a nonviolent drug offense, to me, is it's asinine and it's immoral because, you know, somebody taking drugs is really more of it's not a crime endangering yourself. Not in the, I think I said that wrong. It is a crime, taking drugs is a crime against yourself, not necessarily against others. But the thing is that people do things to themselves all the time, but are they arrested for it? Like if you purposefully burn yourself, are you going to get arrested for burning yourself?
That's a fair argument.
You know. So truth be told, some of these laws are, are out of whack, or they don't take in the nuance. And plus, a lot of these laws were honestly created on the basis of separating and discriminating against certain groups of people.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of the elements of the criminal justice system is built on white supremacy, capitalism, imperialism, and racism. So, so there, it definitely needs to be dismantled and changed. But the fact that you have this huge swath of the country that still thinks it's okay means that they will never change until the laws change, and then that has to change how they view things. You sometimes it can't be the other way around. Sometimes I hate to use the word force, but in a sense, you have to force that change by the laws in that respect.
Yeah, I guess what we struggle with our country right now is like what steps are needed to actually bring about the change. Because federally is that's no chance right now.
That's the
State
first
wise,
raspberry I ever heard on Fred Hampton leftists. So
yeah, that's kind of my thing. I do that a lot
yeah,
when people are trying to, But the point I'm making is like
yeah,
statewide is probably the best solution. And people, I'm gonna say this, and people aren't gonna really want to hear it, but
hmm
for decriminalization, you do have some states that are trying to do it, but a lot of them are actually red states. And the problem is because they want to make money off of it. I mean, look at the marijuana industry in general. Like it's heavily decentralized, meaning that any old Joe can really grow their own stuff if you have the proper licenses or if you don't get caught.
hmm
Any other person could sell.
hmm
So you can have multiple different type of individuals selling this type of product with various little checks because it's all underground.
hmm
So the reason why Republicans want to centralize it is because you can really make your own monopoly over the entire good, then sell it, then tax it so it can bring money for the state, right?
hmm
So you're really turning a decentralized commodity and business model to a centralized one,
hmm
right? So it's kind of like the tobacco industry was before it got pretty big in the 50s and 60s. So I think that's the type of model that's going to move forward. And that's
hmm
why I think even some Republican states are going to do marijuana if they figure it out. If they're doing the culture war of, oh, marijuana is bad, that's, of course, that's not going to happen. But if they actually be capitalists, which we know they have that ability to be,
yeah,
that's, I think, the move they're going to go moving forward. And the reason why federally it's not going to happen is because even Kamala said herself, "Oh, we're too busy for you. Fuck off."
yeah,
so, so
yeah,
that's a disappointing thing as well. And Uncle Joe, everybody can have drugs. No one can have drugs but his kids. So that's kind of his business model too, which
yeah,
is also the unfortunate part. But
yeah,
that's my take. That's my take on it.
yeah. What are your thoughts? What do you think is the chances of a Republican president saying, you know what, the hell with it, we're just going to legalize marijuana?
Mm, nah.
You don't think so?
Statewide is the only solution because presidents themselves in America they respond to grassroots pressure nationally.
hmm
You know, they
hmm
kind of take credit for the groundswell that's already happening. No president is really a trailblazer unless they see the political opportunity to do something. You know, and also it's pretty risky. It's
hmm
extremely risky. I mean,
hmm
just for historical comparisons, when Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act of '64 and '65, he was
hmm
the most popular president since really Franklin Roosevelt in terms of electoral prowess.
hmm
In 1964, during his actual reelection bid, he lost a lot of states in the South. And then in
hmm
'68, when his vice president was running for office, he lost to Richard Nixon. So it's even if you do something good, it's always a cost because we're
Yeah.
humans. We're pretty irrational. So politics
Yeah.
itself, that's why it's not always as clean and cut. Like even with
Hmm.
COVID, we've seen with this election, like, oh, no way Trump's gonna lose. Oh wow, he actually lost. No way Biden's gonna win. Oh fuck, he actually did. So it's it's hard to keep track because we're humans. We're so irrational. There's nothing as concrete. Everything is about how you feel.
Hmm. Exactly. And the funny thing is that a lot of times these things are tied to emotion. You know, a lot of, or sometimes they're tied to uh, religious conviction. A lot of times, especially those on the right, they'll they'll base their religious convictions and apply it to the law, and they kind of teeter, not even teeter. I'm not even going to say that. They mix church and state like crazy. I mean, look at the National Prayer Breakfast. Okay, why in the hell do we have a National Prayer Breakfast in Washington with all the elected officials? And then this is seen as a big political event on mainstream media.
Yeah, I agree. And what's pretty messed up too, since we're on the topic of evangelicals, what do you think of all the evangelicals giving money to Kyle Rittenhouse? And also too, a lot of the police stations as well, who are evangelicals, they're defending Kyle Rittenhouse. So I think that's another problematic thing we have to talk about as well. That's pretty upsetting.
God and guns, baby. God and guns. God, guns, and country, as they say. Uh, you know, like last time, I'm going to quote scripture again.
Okay, drop some scripture for us.
So,
Take us to
wasn't it
church.
wasn't it Jesus that said in the Garden of Gethsemane when Peter drew his sword and then he cut off the soldier's ear? Jesus healed the ear of the soldier and said, "If you live by the sword, you die by the sword. If you live by the gun, you die by the gun." So, if evangelicals really are defending a 17-year-old who disobeyed the law, okay, um, mind you, we were told to obey the law as far as as far as the governments are concerned, as long as it doesn't supersede God's law, which is taught out in Romans. So he disobeyed the law, went to the protests with a gun, underage, and then he did it not to protect the people, but to protect the businesses. And people see him with a gun and they tackle him to take the gun away because they don't want him to kill people. And what does he do? He kills two people. So, that being said, he's committed sins. Now, of course, we all commit sins, so to speak. So, you know, okay, you can pass that off, but at the same time, he did something wrong. And now what you're doing is you're saying that what he did that was wrong is okay. And the thing is if you're truly about people repenting, turning around, and doing what's right, and if you're especially the type of person that, and I'm assuming a lot of these people who are evangelicals are also kind of authoritarian,
Oh,
then
definitely.
they would want someone who does something wrong to go to prison. So why are you preventing him from having an opportunity to repent? This is the thing. And so when people want to talk about, oh, well, we want people, to do what's right, If you want people to do what's right, you need to start with yourself. And the thing is that sometimes doing what's right doesn't mean owning the libs.
That's true.
It means doing what's right, even if that's the liberal position or the left position. It's not even a left or right position. It's just the right position. So for people to go and think, oh well, he was doing the right thing from protecting businesses. Number one, what matters more, a business or a person? Because
But
two
here's
people lost their lives. Businesses can be replaced. Who's going to replace them?
I think this goes back to the humans, us being irrational human beings, like I said, and also too this whole notion of the separation of church and state. Politics has always been in church, especially in the black church. Politics,
Yes, unfortunately, yeah.
yeah. So in any church, just to make this clear, but the only reason why I said the black one is because I'm black. That's what I'm familiar to. If you're a
Hmm.
person who's religious, I'm pretty sure you got politics in your church as well.
Yeah.
And so to get with your point about why they feel that certain way,
Hmm.
well, I'm pretty sure everyone has a certain role in the church, and you may feel bad about a certain issue, but you want to maintain your role in your position, right? So a
Hmm.
lot of these evangelicals, they have a certain role in their community. They have to act tough. They have to act hard. They don't want to defer. But
Hmm.
in the eyes of God, sin is sin is sin. Sin is the same. We're all filthy
Hmm.
rags in His image, right?
Hmm.
And so in
Yeah, of
general,
course.
when you see something like that, something that a guy like Kyle Rittenhouse did, and someone said in the chat that he crossed state lines, which is also illegal, so they should have called him out on that as well. So
Hmm.
if you would do something like that, carrying a firearm, crossing state lines, killing individuals, and you as an evangelical Christian isn't going to go after this person when not only he committed murder,
Hmm.
but he also crossed state lines, which is also illegal. And murder
Hmm.
is one of the highest sins in the Bible. Like that
Oh
is
yeah.
almost undisputed.
Hmm.
Undisputed. Like that is something they say you go to hell for, almost automatically
Yeah.
for. So that is it's extremely hypocritical. And not only do you defend him, but you like give money to this guy too for his defense fund. I'm just like, oh God, it's just disgusting. And that's why I sympathize with some people who aren't religious and say, look, I love your God, but I hate your Christians. And what that means is look, I agree with what your God's preachings are about how to be a good Samaritan, how to be a good citizen, treating your neighbor right, lifting, giving a hand out, and pulling someone up when they're struggling. I agree with that. But
Yeah,
I
of course.
disagree with the hypocrisy of this followers of your religion.
Hmm.
So for me, as a person who's really a Baptist Christian, I struggle with this a lot every day.
Hmm.
With hey, I'm just going to be a good Samaritan, treat other people the way I want to be treated, treat people fairly, be a good
Hmm.
Samaritan. So those type of teachings I subscribe to, because just basic human decency. That's all we're saying. But when you have
Yeah,
those type of people who make excuses for it, then that's a problem.
absolutely. And so this is one of the reasons why, number one, there needs to be a separation. Now, yes, do you have certain beliefs that influence the decisions that you make when it comes to politics? Yes. But at the same time, when you're a politician, you have to take into account that it's not just your religious beliefs that you're representing. If anything, you have to represent everybody's. But the problem is that you can't represent everybody's because everybody's is so different. So you have to represent nobody's. So you have to do things from a secular point of view when you're governing. So, like for instance, the whole abortion thing. It's like, well, I don't believe in abortion, then don't have an abortion. You know what I mean? Don't you do it then? But
Exactly.
that's a personal decision. Me personally, I would never have an abortion if I were a woman, but guess what? I'm not a woman. So therefore it's not my choice. And how
Right.
dare I tell another woman what to do with her own body? That's not my decision, that's not my choice. So therefore I wouldn't dare do that. Even if I were a woman. So the thing is you can't. We this is not a theocracy. This is a representative democracy. So therefore, if you want a theocracy, then move to Saudi Arabia, because that's not where we are here. And so as far as as far as you know the evangelicals doing what they did, look, you had the Pope that was praying over Hitler years ago, and then you had on the opposite side, you had, I think it was one of the cardinals praying over the soldiers here. And it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And there's always that mixture between church and state. And we need to deviate from having that. Freedom of religion, yes, but having religion in the political sphere, no. Because the thing is, there's too many differing opinions. And so therefore you have to have some place that's neutral, you know. But
Yeah,
I don't
you're
want to get too I'm not trying to get too deep in the weeds here, because there's other things that we want to cover. But yeah, there's a reason why they set a separation of church and state, in my opinion.
yeah. I didn't know this was going to turn into a hate evangelicals cast for the first 30 minutes, but we we
And
had a
here's the crazy thing. I was an evangelical. I literally went door to door preaching to people for almost 20 years. So I know,
yeah.
what I mean? So
It's the same way of me bashing liberals. I used to be one, so that's why every time I approach a liberal, I'm like, "Quit being fucking dumb! Like you're this
yeah,
close."
yeah. And it's not even bashing. It's it's bringing rationale into the conversation, you know? Um, and it's like, you can't, and we're basically saying, if you truly believe in this system, which when you think about it, especially according to like the gospel, so to speak, then it's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of great tenets that we should apply, especially, in our daily life. However, if you are, you know, misrepresenting those same tenets for your own warped political view, then shame on you. And the thing is, this is one of the reasons why church and state should be separate, because people do this, and this happens, and then next thing because I don't want another Kyle Rittenhouse, but if these people would have their way, I hate saying these people. If evangelicals
No,
had their
speak
way,
your chest. You know what you was trying to say. Don't try to soften up for them folks. You know what you was trying to say. Just
all
say
right.
it. Speak with your
If
chest.
these people had their way, there'd be a whole bunch of more Kyle Rittenhouses. There'd be a whole lot more Derek Chauvins. There'd be a whole lot more Timothy McVeigh's. Okay, you want to talk about people who are warping, the beliefs of Christ. Look at Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bombing. He was literally a terrorist. And you know what? I'm gonna say this: all those people who always talked about radical Islamic terrorism, I'm gonna give you a word: radical Christendom terrorism. Yes, that's a thing, and it happens. So guess what? If you want to talk about, like, for instance, you want to talk about Muslim, okay, let's talk about Christians. Let's talk about all the shit that they did. Okay? People who are so-called Christians. So you know what? Here's the thing. There are bad people with bad beliefs everywhere. There are even bad people who can be atheists. But the thing is that, number one, let's take a look at what's the underlying issues of why people do the things that they do first. And that's something that nobody ever wants to talk about. They always want to talk about, oh, this person did a bad thing. Let's lock them up away forever. Why did they do the bad thing? Why did they do it? Why do you have gangs in fucking Chicago that are shooting each other up? Why? Because you have kids out there who don't have families. Why? Because of the prison industrial complex, because of imperialism and all this other shit that's been going on by our government. So guess what? You have these people, these kids who don't have families, and then you have somebody who takes them under their wing in Chicago. But then what's the only way that they can actually have an income? Selling drugs. Well, if somebody moves in on their turf, they got to do what they got to do. And so guess what? This crime happens. And crimes are happening because of crimes of desperation and crimes of opportunity. If you take away the desperation and if you give them opportunity, then they will not be doing this shit at all. Then guess what? You're going to have safer communities. This is why, and I notice Nick is here, this is why police abolition is so good. Because if people actually have the resources that they have, then there's no need for a police. Then all we have to do is monitor our own neighborhoods. And guess what? Then you have a more just and more safer and peaceful community. A more safe, just, and peaceful community means a more safe, just, and peaceful America. And I just want to say, hey to Nick, welcome to the stream. I'm so glad to have you.
Hallelujah on a Sunday. Thank you, Jesus. That was great, JV. Woo! You caught the spirit this morning.
So I jumped on, and then as soon as I jumped on, JV's going off. I'm like, bro, I'm gonna sit here and be taking the church. It is Sunday, so my man JV is taking us to church today. So I just had to watch the stream. I'm like, bro, he going off. I'm alone. Preach the truth. Mm-hmm. Preach the truth.
Yeah, you came at the right time because we're about to transition to talk about AOC statements.
Jesus.
Yeah,
so Jesus. Bro, we have a killer lineup of guests this week, and I'm very, very interested in getting people's take on the direction of the left. Like we're gonna have, so for anyone who's watching, we're gonna have Justin Jackson, and Jordan Cheriton on Tuesday. So we having a special episode back to back, my boy CJ. And you got what kind of guests do you guys have going on this week? My point was that I want to get a lot of people take on this kind of stuff because this was a gut punch. Even if you are being critical of AOC and the squad from day one, I don't think this is. I honestly don't think this is I don't think it's something that we should be like celebrating as I told you so because it's legitimately depressing when you have. I know friends who.
Oh no, we should be saying we told you so. We told you, motherfuckers.
So. You're right.
No, don't let these motherfuckers off the hook. Crush these motherfuckers and let them know who's boss.
I mean, what I'm saying is, I think this is like not a good thing because it's not good to have people who. I guess it's the natural conclusion that people should make in the first place. Because now you have a lot of people who's invested in electoral politics who are not going to make that same mistake again. We're gonna have my good friend of the show, Sky Daddy, and the lady. She went viral on Twitter. I think her name is Red as Ari on Twitter. She was breaking down how Trump supporters pretty much just pushing wide. She had a viral. I'm not gonna butcher what she was saying. I'm gonna play her clip probably a little bit later on one of my shows. But we're gonna discuss people who still invest in electoral politics. And there are a lot of people I see that was really engaged who kind of like said fuck it now. I'll pass it to RJ though, because I know you transition a little bit more into the story.
Yeah, so I got the actual video footage of AOC, so I can play that for our viewers. Hopefully this really works. Let's see. Give me a second. This is my first time doing this shit, so y'all bear with me.
I'm just vibing. I'm just vibing right now.
Okay, so I'll share this.
I think I got like 30, 40 minutes.
Let me know if y'all see this.
Off, but I can show for you. I can show over here for a little bit. I can see it.
Yeah, can our viewers see it though?
Yeah, I'm gonna have the YouTube so I can see if I can see it.
Okay, so I'm playing it.
I'll play it. I'll let you know if I can see it or not.
Yeah, hold on. Let me try this one again.
If you're watching this live, help us out.
Yeah, present, and then Chrome. Oh, I forgot to share audio. That's why. Okay. All right, we're restarting, guys. Okay, we have this in the corner here, and you guys can hear this, right?
One thing that I will say is that
I can hear it.
you think that Biden administration and President Biden has definitely exceeded expectations that progressives had. I'll be frank. I
If
think
you're watching, let us know if you can hear it. Okay.
a much more conservative administration, and I think that his not only what has ultimately come out, but the active invitation and willingness and collaboration with progressives in his first 100 days, or almost 100 days, has been very impressive. And so while there are there are areas where there are just plain areas of disagreement, I think that the actual conduct of the administration has absolutely been in good faith, but not just in good faith, but active incorporation of progressive legislation, and also for those of us individually. I can at least say that there has been a lot of openness and willingness and flexibility in incorporating many of our goals, requests, demands, etc. And I think that it has been to the benefit of the country.
Okay, so that was her statement. On my end, it was kind of fuzzy. Like the audio
Well,
was kind of.
at least the people that watch us said they can hear it. Sorry if it wasn't the best quality, but hopefully you guys kind of picked up what she was saying at least.
Okay.
It was very clear on my end. So
okay,
it wasn't.
Oh, it must have been double on my end because I was playing. Okay, well that's fine. JB, what's your thoughts? And we'll get Nick, and then I'll go last.
He did not exceed my expectation. For her to say that means that there is a disconnect in her thought process, which means that to transition to professional managerial class is complete. It means that because she's now affluent, she has migrated to a certain subset of society that views people like Joe Biden as Uncle Joe licking the ice cream with the aviator glasses on, as my friend RJ says so eloquently. So the fact that she is giving this praise to Biden for doing not even the floor, but the basement. If you took 2018 AOC, who just won her election, and showed her this AOC, she'd be like, who in the hell is this woman? And this is what we're saying. Who in the hell is this woman? Because this is not the person that a lot of us were fired up at seeing when she first was elected. So the thing is number one, I'm not impressed with $1,400 checks that should have been $2,000 that were given to the people as survival checks, and it should have been regular checks that have been given for the duration of the crisis. I am not impressed with the fact that not only are we not getting a $15 minimum wage, but we also do not have Medicare for all during a pandemic. By the way, Joe Biden himself said he would veto Medicare for all when he was speaking with Lawrence O'Donnell on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC. So he said that. Quote me. Go research it. He said it. He's not doing an infrastructure bill that is sufficient enough to take care of the crisis at hand. The $2.5 trillion infrastructure package that he wants to do, number one, is less than even what he said he wanted to do. It's lower than Joe Manchin said that he wanted. And on top of it, it is insufficient compared to what experts say that we should have. In fact, experts say that we should have between $7 to $10 trillion infrastructure package in order to adequately tackle the crisis that we have at hand as far as our infrastructure. Bernie Sanders wanted to do $16 trillion for the Green New Deal, by the way, which is actually a watered down version of the Green New Deal. So guess what? everything that Biden has did was wholly inadequate. So therefore, for her to say that she exceeded our expectations as progressives, number one, means she's talking about somebody else. She's not talking about us. Because as far as we're concerned, to us, she doesn't even see us as progressive anymore. Because if she did, she wouldn't have said that. To us, we're the far left now. She doesn't even identify with us anymore. So that's scary. So that tells you everything that you need to know, that she has now become a standard issue Democrat. And it's over. You know, she would have to do some major redemption, of herself in order for the left to look at her and go, oh yeah, you're still on the left. Not right now.
So I'm gonna see if I can pull this up here. Mm-hmm. I think this is pretty good to share before I give my take on it and to kind of give you guys an idea what I'm discussing here. Mm-hmm. Our boy, friend of the show, Ryan, I tweeted this out. My man Ryan, he's a soldier. He's going to war with a lot of these progressives who are trying to shift the Overton window to the right. And that's what they're doing, guys. I hope you guys understand that. So when you hear, or when you don't hear, actually, AOC, the progressive politicians, speak about Julian Assange, the Syria bombings, the fact that we still putting sanctions on as starving Africans and South Americans. And when you see the policies that Joe Biden is continuing right now, which Chomsky himself, which they conveniently quote when he says something they agree with, but Chomsky said his foreign policy is just like Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let me get to the AOC video. But let's check this out, and this kind of explains what my criticism of her is right now. Ryan said I would like to file a missing person report. Check this out. Mm-hmm. Let me know if you guys can hear it. I gotta redo it. I just now realized I forgot I gotta put the share audio. 1 second. I don't know why that's not automatically. I hate that you actually got selected. All right, let me just reload it. Can one of you guys let me know when you hear
it? Yeah, that wasn't it.
No, that was a glitch. It does that sometimes.
Oh, okay.
All right. I just gotta see this. It was just glad I just gotta redo it. Mm-hmm. They did that before. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah. While he's doing that, RJ, what are your thoughts?
Why is this not working? Anyway, the video clip I was about to show you guys. I don't know why it's messing up like that. That's where is RJ. Oh, RJ was muted. RJ, I don't know if you know you're muted or not.
Oh, okay, my fault. No, it's cool. Cool. The audio sounded like Halloween music when you
that's a software glitch. I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe I can try to see if I can get the video to work. The basis of the video is AOC lays out. It's a great clip. This is around time. This is a clip I always saw back then, and that would confirm my position on it. Back when I used to really like AOC and the squad, because she accurately describes how the Democratic Party is not a left party. She says the Democratic Party is a center or a conservative party, and you can't have any sympathy for a Democratic Party because this is what she said in that clip. That's why I wanted to show it. She said, we can't even get a floor vote for Medicare for all. So back then, getting a floor vote for Medicare for all was a big deal. It was important. That was a 2019 DSA strategy. They said we need to get more progressive politicians in because once we have thin margins, once we defeat Donald Trump, we can force floor votes. And she said that in that clip right there.
Wow.
Now, those same people who are anti-force to vote are pretending that she never said that. They are pretending. My friend Zoya from 10 to Man, she accurately tweeted out. She's really, really underrated. Amazing activist. She tweeted the DSA fucking strategy that they had. They said one of the main strategies they want to do is force as many votes on progressive policies as possible. Medicare for all being the key one. And that's what AOC said right there. So what changed? Nancy Pelosi got her ass. Nancy Pelosi set her to the side. And it's embarrassing that she clipped and defamed Justice Democrats the way they have. Now, they went from a movement that was supposed to be the biggest threat to the Democratic Party establishment. They went to that, and now she's the best PR that and weapon that the Democratic Party can ask for. So the video that RJ shown, and the video where she was saying and apologizing for Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you guys this: why did she do that? Like why she's being forced to go out and make these videos? She's being forced to defend Joe Biden. So her role in the Democratic Party right now is the popular face that cleans up the image of the party. So there was this poll, and I reported on time. They have a big platform, but it was around 2017, right around the time Hillary lost and Democrats was embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see. I'll put it up on the screen too. It said millennials are leaving the Democratic Party in droves. This is from Reuters in 2017. I'll pull it up here very soon. So the Democratic Party was bleeding support from young people. And now AOC, Bernie Sanders, and the squad, because they're massively popular, are now saying that Joe Biden is doing a great job, despite the fact that he lied about every significant policy and he's complicit with U.S. imperialism in the police state that is ruining communities. He's complicit with the global vaccine eugenic program that's going on. Even it's so bad that you have Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren came out and say, "All right, this is too much. You guys got to open up these patents for international states." Either way, I digress. The point is, you have someone who's horrible like Joe Biden, but Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad, like, you know what? He's more progressive than I thought he was going to be. Despite the fact he's not even providing health care to his people in the middle of a pandemic. He can't even provide his constituents with a living wage. These are key issues that we had with Justice that we raised as Justice Democrats in 2016, 2017. Find money in politics, find corruption. Why is that not a big deal no more? Because they shifted a lot of progressives to the right. Because by AOC saying that Biden is doing a good job, and by her not speaking about the Syria bombing and many other things, she's trying to train her followers not to care about that stuff. And a lot of them don't. Because how many shit libs you see on Twitter so far that say, "Oh, actually, Biden, I thought he was going to be bad, but he's actually really good." I'm like, what? And people wonder why I spend all my time attacking Democrats on Twitter. Why would I spend my time attacking Republicans in the right wing when Joe Biden and the neoliberal corporate establishment has a propaganda program that makes them untouchable? Joe Biden lost 4 presidential campaigns, and he was embarrassed every single time he ran. He ran this time. The media establishment decided to get behind him, and he was one of the strongest electoral juggernauts of all time. He defeated one of the biggest grassroots movements. I know he cheated, but going by the rules, he still defeated Bernie Sanders, and he defeated Trump and MAGA. So he was a failed candidate 3 times, but they turned him to an amazing juggernaut. And now we got progressives that helping him doing that. Mm-hmm. Well, how crazy is that? So that's why we got called this out, and that's why we can't let this shit stand. We can't let people fucking rewrite history. You know, he has like a 60% approval rating among young people. I was planning on covering this story with Jordan and Justin Jackson. We still will. But I'm looking at a lot of these new stories, and people are being misled because there's all these stories like Joe Biden, the next FDR. He doing like we are the most propagandized country. Like it's been insane these last few weeks, watching all the media and watching everyone who can be reached by the Democratic Party pretty much be active PR for Biden when he's governing just like Trump. I talked back to RJ though. That's my initial thoughts now.
So I'm gonna add here. So I'm just gonna comment on 3 pieces you just mentioned. So about the AOC PR, people like, and according to like the DSA handbook, I'm in the DSA or whatever. So even back then, they had this plan about how to enforce type of legislations on the floor, vis-a-vis using the Democratic Party as a vessel. But the problem that people had was a certain guy who's ex-proud liberal or proud socialist, but now is Ryan Knight, and also Jimmy Dore. So people really hate these 2 figures passionately if you're in DSA or on the left so much that you're willing to ignore the actual argument and just go after them and then want to kill the entire thing so you can laugh about it. So that's also an issue that I find. And about the AOC PR, she's basically being used by the Democrats to make themselves look bigger and better. The mistake the Democrats made in 2016, even with killing Bernie, is that he became even more popular when they killed him. See, that's the problem. So they didn't co-opt him enough. Like they tried this whole unity tour bullshit with like Tom Perez, who was the former DNC chairman. They used to parade Bernie out there like, hey, look at Democrats. We're together. Unity. That was bullshit. It didn't work. Bernie looked pissed the entire time, but they made him do it.
Mm-hmm.
And another point about is millennials leaving the Democratic Party. I mean, even in 2017, like even before me, I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with the Democrats. They're not powerful. They don't do anything. They laugh, they smile. They always say they don't have power, even when they're in power. So that's why millennials started to leave, because people were starting to realize that, hey, they're just the same as the Republicans. They just play the culture war better, you know. So I think it really exposed that even this summer with like, okay, the NBA boycotts. Wow, the black NBA players, they're finally standing in solidarity. They about to do this thing with us. They even recognize how fucked this shit up is. And
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama, like clockwork, he and me and JB spoke about this earlier when we just started the show about the difference between the culture wars. The Trump culture war, I'll reiterate, the Trump
Mm-hmm.
culture war is throwing gasoline on the embers of a flame and then it ignites. How
Yep.
Obama uses the culture war is if there's a fire already there, he just pours water on it and gets rid of the inflames entirely. So, like when the Flint water crisis was a big thing, Obama comes in, pretty faced black man, charming and handsome. Barry Obama sing Amazing Grace in front of all the black people, and then
Mm-hmm.
everybody goes to sleep. You know, and it's not by and it's either they feel contempt because the cultural side, or they get depressed because
Mm-hmm.
when it's against a rich old white man, we as black folks we get pissed. All the black community gets pissed, but when it's your own, you get sad, so you lay down. And why does this make sense about the millennials? Well, the millennials we're young, so we don't have that type of experience and a type of longitude about how to go around. So we want everything fast. Like even I struggle with this sometimes about wanting fast change, and like
Mm-hmm.
I hate saying like, oh, it takes time because I say that's bullshit. You do with the time you have, but I feel like the manufacturing consent, the AOC, and some of these other progressives are trying to do to keep millennials in the Democratic Party is pretty disgusting. And it's not just AOC. The problem with AOC is she doesn't shut the fuck up. She's always talking. All the other ones, yes, they talk too, but it's either through a proxy, it's through an article, or they stay off Twitter. It's amazing how AOC has allowed herself to be the spokesperson of the House Progressive Caucus. At first it was Mark Pocan, then it was Pramila Jayapal,
and for Joe Biden. Sorry
for,
to cut you out, RJ, but they rolling her out there just to cover for Joe Biden just because she's so popular. But go ahead. I just want to add that.
Yeah, and one more point, and then I'll swing it back to JB. Nick talked about the media as well, and let's just get this straight. Nobody fucking like Joe Biden. Like even the media at first was like, "Look, Joe, you had your time. Just drop out, man. You got 6% of the vote." But then as soon as Bernie got popular, Joe, you don't have to win. Just stay alive. Just stay alive.
Even Obama was throwing low key shades at him back then. He was like, there was a story that released when he like, you can never discount Joe. I'm fucking something up. But he stopped saying stuff like that when it was Bernie versus Biden, and that's why he didn't come out and endorse Biden. And there was a lot of examples of him throwing like sneaky jabs at like Biden in his campaign. I thought that was weird. I didn't know why he would do that. I was like,
because
but
Joe
go ahead,
Biden,
back to you.
Because Joe Biden was starting to become more popular. See, Obama's a narcissist. It explains too why when Keith Ellison was running for the DNC chairmanship, but in 2016 he picked the tool Tom Perez, because Tom Perez is a fucking tool. He does what he says. He says nothing fucking interesting. He's a yes man. Keith Ellison, he was saying some progressive shit back then. Regardless of you think of his politics, in 2016 when he was running for DNC chairmanship, he sounded progressive. Obama hated that because one, he sounded progressive and he was black. We already have a top Negro in the Democratic Party. That's Obama, so he couldn't have that shit. So that's why they tossed Keith Ellison to the curb. But in general about the media itself is that Joe Biden in multiple primary states didn't have a single campaign office in the entire state. Bernie Sanders had tons of campaign offices in California and many of these primary states. Joe Biden just used mainstream media the same way Trump did in 2016. And the media in 2016, they were idiots. They just played Trump's empty podium. They all thought Trump was a joke, but gave him free media coverage. This time around, they said, oh, if we could swing an election by accident, we could damn sure do it on purpose. So that's why on purpose, they were full on drinking the juice, manufacturing consent like crazy. It's Biden or bust. You're a Russian if you don't vote for Biden. You're a dumb idiot American if you don't vote for Biden. Vote for Biden. Vote for Uncle Joe. And that's
you're
what
not
they were
black
trying to
if
do.
You don't vote for Biden.
Oh yeah, if you're not black, you don't vote for Biden. So all those three factors is the reason why the left is struggling. And we have our allies on the left, like like these politicians. I'm beyond them saying that, oh, like, I even say all the time that they're permissionary parliamentarian types, meaning that they only react unless they get permission from the establishment and they believe in influx of more progressives to gain power. I'm not even there anymore. Like, I'm really at the stroke of saying that they're bad faith actors. At first, I was harping against that, but now I'm saying it because they're really pretending like their way is the best way. And we're like, look, we're giving you all the strategies. We're giving you the best advice. Quit being fucking idiots. And at some point, you got to stop giving money to these motherfuckers. You know, if you're giving their money to them and they're fucking you over, you're a cuck. That's what makes you a cuck. So we leftists have got to stop cucking ourselves. You know, so there's bullshitters, there's cucks, and there's cunts. Bernie is starting to get to Bernie, AOC, some of these other progressives, they're getting cunt status. We are so done with these motherfuckers. I'm just done. And so at this point, we as leftists, we have to work with our communities, grassroots organizations, because these politicians, until we put the fear of God in them, nothing will happen. Yeah.
At this point, some of us are going, what the cuck? So that was my corny joke for the day. Thank you. But I have
laugh, but I have smoke in my lungs. I couldn't laugh. I'm like, damn, I see you, bro.
Yeah. But okay. So all the people who are now making excuses for what AOC said about Joe Biden exceeding expectation, I want to talk to you for a second. Come here. Closer. I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to like, but you need to hear. You've been sheep herded into the Democratic Party.
You were pushed to the right. You don't even know it.
You were pushed to the right, and you were your consent was manufactured.
Hey, JB, there are people right now. Hey, JB, there are people right now that, you know, there are people that say they're progressives who are like, you know, Joe Biden's actually been like, he actually hasn't been that bad. There are people that actually saying that with a straight face. This dude legally bombing countries. He's funding a genocide. He is attacking the free press. And you got progressives like, you know, I'm actually pretty surprised at Joe Biden right now. What?
I heard Biden may come up with tax cuts. That's kind of a rumor I heard about tax cuts coming. So
hang on, just let me do this long pause.
Oh, go ahead.
I believe in when that shit passes. Like, so the funny thing is, these same progressives, they was like, yo, you know, Joe Biden, he reversed the Keystone XL pipeline, all this stuff, and then a few days later, they're like, you know, they actually didn't do that. Like, they would announce something and then they won't follow through. The progressive would praise them and then they don't correct themselves. So another example of this, I'll pass it right back to JB, is when they said they were going to pull out of the Afghanistan war. And now you had a lot of people who was praising Joe Biden, like, oh, I can't believe you're actually doing that. And what we say when we was talking to Robert Cobb, I said, no, you motherfuckers need to stop repeating like the PR press releases that they come out with, because they are keeping all the private contractors.
Yeah.
So they're not pulling out Afghanistan. But sorry, go ahead, JB. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, I'm still not done with you. You the ones who said that, you know, you're still with AOC after that comment. You've been played. You've been had. You've been taken for a ride. You've been bamboozled. It's time to wake up and smell the roses, guys. Listen, okay. She's saying that he exceeded her expectations. She's speaking of Biden as if Bernie suddenly went into Biden's body and is doing actual progressive policies. Guess what? It's not happening. Wake up. Okay? So let me tell you something. Okay? Nothing is going to happen at the hands of the politicians. Real change never happens at the hands of the politicians. It only happens at the hands of the people. And the thing is that unfortunately, because those of us who we saw Bernie because we were desperate for somebody who actually understood us. And when that person actually came around, we were like, yes, finally. But then it got to a point where we start to see him as a savior. We saw Bernie Sanders as the Moses, and then we saw AOC as the Joshua. And that's the issue that we're facing right now, because you still have people who see AOC as a false Joshua, and now they're going, oh, well, we still have to follow her this direction. And we see her as somebody false, and we're like, no. Don't do that. Because the thing is that, yeah, Bernie got us close to the promised land, but Bernie's not going to get there. And guess what? AOC is not the person that we need to follow. We need to follow ourselves. And the thing is that unfortunately,
educate each other.
Yeah, and the thing is that we can't be we cannot keep standing these people, because we have to recognize that politicians are a means to an end. They are there just to be sympathetic to our cause, so that when we make our demands, they'll be the easiest to say, okay, I'll do it. But it's really the people who have to push for this is us.
Can I do a short video real quick? When you finish it, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. But I just saw an interesting comment. And then there was another interesting follow-up question. I kind of want to give you guys thought. I didn't mean to cut you off, brother, but I think this is an interesting little tidbit here. He said, I have a theory. This is from Kami Hilliger on YouTube. He said, I have a theory that January 6th, the insurrection or whatever, did work. It scared the left in Congress to the point where they are unwilling to fight for leftist cause. Amen. Then there was a follow-up, and I'll give you guys thought on that. And there's another follow-up from Luke Willing. He said Trump and the insurrection is being used by the Democrats the same way Republicans use 9/11. Amen. Exactly. To justify violence, and I'll pass it to you, RJ. To justify violence and silence critics who want our collective wealth spent on something better than war. Great comments. I love our community. I'll pass it to RJ. What are your thoughts?
I hope I don't get our channel suspended, but I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna try to keep this clean. So,
all right, no, people gonna get mad at me. So
the right. This is what the right does, and they do this. They're dumbasses in general. So I'm just gonna preface that, but their tactics fucking work. So when these right-wing assholes stormed the Capitol, not only did it piss off the apolitical people who believe in decency and commonality and all that fucking bullshit, it also scared the fucking liberals because, oh my God, they're coming after us. And by the way, liberals were already for the fascist police state. They were already for Trump's increase in the military. So now they're for even more. They want to do more. They want to outdo Trump, so they can say, oh, see, we care more about protecting the country. We care more about protecting the Capitol. So they were for that. But here's the thing, guys. This is what the right has taught us. If you stand up for what you want, even if you protest, do it the right way. Look, we left wingers, we're gonna get fucking shot. Let's be fucking real. If we went out there and did the same shit, we're shot dead. These right wing assholes, they have connections with the police state. They have connection with the Capitol. Many of them did. It just got exposed. So they were let in. Many of them just they opened the gates. Come on in. With us, we're fucking dead. So I'm just going to preface that so none of y'all come after me on Twitter. So I just wanted to say that. But if we actually really go after, if we just protest in front of the Capitol and really use some of the tactics they did that's successful, we can really scare some of these politicians to do something that they don't want to do. I mean, look what happened in the 1930s, 1940s. The bonus marches. A lot of veterans, they marched to the Capitol. It was during the Great Depression. They had no money, no job, no pension, no benefits, no way to support their family. But the only thing they had was their pension fund that they had as a veteran from World War I. They wanted that shit now because they didn't have anything. They wanted to feed their family, right? They protested for 30 fucking days with the Union behind their back. Eventually, they got in 1945, so that was a good thing, but it was deemed successful. So what we as the left got to do is look, we do get infiltrated a lot, and we can't rely on these celebrities in general to line with us. Like, look what the right did. I mean, of course they had Alex Jones, so I'll give you that. If he's a right-wing celebrity, I'll give you that. But in general, these right-wing assholes, it's just them and their crazy family and friends out there fucking shit up, you know. So I think in general, it's very difficult in that instance to draw a direct comparison. But in times, I do believe the left should be a lot more aggressive. And we see a rich history throughout our country, through countries around the globe, when people protest the right way and that doesn't work. And here, I'm going to say something controversial. So, general strikes, protesting in general, works when you have a government that is sensitive and feels a certain way to their people, that they would make a change, because you have to have a heart. So if you have a heart and you feel bad and you see these people are protesting, you are more sympathetic to make that change.
Yeah.
But what happens if you have a government that is not sympathetic, that is antagonistical, that does not feel or give a fuck about your pain? Then what? They will crush you. They wouldn't give a fuck. They would. And of course, we have laws put in place, just to preface that too, about what police, what the military, and what their codes are to using that type of force on American citizens. What happens if you have a government that feels so threatened and doesn't have any type of affiliation with this people to feel their pain? Then what? So I don't know. I don't know where I was really getting with that, but my point I'm making is that in America, the right has so much leeway in what they can get away with. And I wish the left, we could be a little bit more innovative in how we go about getting what we want as well. So that's kind of what I had to say.
Well, if you think about it, we are the left navigating through a right-wing country. So it's basically, it's their territory, and as far as the system that we have in place. So of course, it's going to be a lot more difficult for us to be able to implement the things that we would like. And truth be told, I gave this a lot of thought. And what happened on January 6th, would I have stormed the Capitol? Not in that way. But honestly, I think if the left had did something similar, instead of taking a tour through the Capitol to try to find people, the left would have occupied the space, sat their asses on the floor, and said, we will not move. We will not move until you give us $2,000 checks every single month for the duration of the crisis, until you give us Medicare for all, and until you pass at least a $15 minimum wage. That would have been the demands. And then they would have actually invited the media to come in so that they can see what's going on, and they would have talked to them and said, this is what we want. And then they actually would have gotten something productive. What the right-wing assholes basically did, all they did was they just wanted to be flashy and go, oh, we just stormed the Capitol. And then a lot of them, when they did it, they were like, oh, we don't know what they're going to do now. So they weren't even really organized. It was just a spur of the moment thing. So, the thing is that
you guys still talking about the January 6th, right?
Yeah.
The cops literally let them in.
Yep.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Anyone who discusses this issue without talking about that is a fucking fraud. You got liberals like, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened. The cops let them fucking in. You see what they do to us? And you want me to clutch my pearls over this event? Fuck you. The cops is literally complicit with them. So that's gonna get me in trouble. But am I wrong? The cops literally let them in. So if you are a liberal and you want me to be super up in arms about this, but you don't support defund the police after you see them team up with white supremacists, suck my dick. You literally just virtual signaling. If you that's my position right now. I'm dragging you to the left, whether you like it or not. If you don't support defund the police and you want to pretend that you outraged about stuff like this, you're a joke. You're a joke. I don't want to take you seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's my position. Because people got mad at me when I said that. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care, because if you support a police state as it is right now, which a lot of liberals do, like they had, like Jennifer Rubin she's a superstar of the resistance in the Biden bros. So I'm talking about that class of voters and that class of media establishment worship. In 2021, she argues in favor of the Iraq War and U.S. imperialism. These are the people I'm talking about, by the way.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. So, someone like Jennifer Rubin will support giant police budgets, but they want me to be outraged about this event that happened where the police were complicit with. You had a lot of former police officers and military officers who were part of this so-called insurrection, but you want us to continue to fund these people more money? Fuck, like, unless you actually support the actual solution to the problem, you irritate me more by talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you want people that act in outrage about police shooting black people, but your solution to that problem is to fund them more money, you're a menace to our movement. You are the white moderate that MLK was warning us about. I hope you realize that.
But
Right.
Nick, you know, like Brian Williams said, if you just want to change it, just become a police officer and join the police force, right?
That was Brian Williams that said that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the people I'm talking about. Like when I'm saying the reason why I gotta point that out is because I'm also debunking propaganda. The propaganda is that defund the police is unpopular. That's not true. The majority of Democrats support it, like 70%. So I'm talking about the 30%. Like these are when you see me tweet about the liberal establishment and the liberal class, like people think I'm going after people who are progressive who just if you're just misled, you were in the same position I was in 2010. You know what I mean? I wouldn't attack my old self, the version of me who like Obama. I'd be more interested in educating them. So when I attacking these liberals, I'm talking about the Jennifer Rubins, by the way. So these are the people who still support giant police budgets. There's a 30% who goes against all popular policy. So once again, who are the people who oppose Medicare for all? It's not a lot of people supported by 55% independents, but 80% Democrats. 80? Who's that 20%? Who are those people? That's Jennifer Rubin. Those are the people I'm talking about. These are the people who upset me the most about the whole dialogue around police abolition. Because at least the right wing will let us know where you stand. And then they will actually help us because they're so unhinged, it's easier for us to win the middle over. So they actually help us by doing stuff like posing next to George Floyd on social media, like photoshopping him, and like, yeah, fuck George Floyd, he was a criminal, he deserved to die. Like, those people actually help our movement at the end of the day because they are driving moderates away from supporting their position. And now this is why you see people more supportive of defunding the police and getting justice for George Floyd, because those people on the right are actually helping us. Meanwhile, you know who hurts us the most? The liberals, who they put Black Lives Matter all over the profile. They support George Floyd, but then they passed the George Floyd Act. Well, they didn't pass it. I don't think it passed, but they proposed the George Floyd Act that gives more money to the police. So I explained to you how the right is ineffective, and this is why we're able to gain traction in our movement. But liberals will keep driving us back. People like Amy Klobuchar have been driving us back. Go ahead, JB.
Let me ask you this. Would you say that neoliberalism is the wet blanket to progress?
Like, it's not even just a blanket of progress. They are an enemy of mankind. So what I mean by that, I always reframe stuff because people think I'm crazy. But people will say, all right, you won't vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump. That means you must prefer fascism over neoliberalism. And I'm like, this is a ridiculous argument because by doing that, the only thing you're not actually opposing fascism when you make that argument. The only thing you're actually accomplishing is whitewashing the crimes of neoliberalism by blindly just comparing it to just another ideology. So what I mean by that, what's responsible for Operation Condor, where the CIA killed socialists in Latin America, like innocent civilians? What's the ideology that's responsible for 2.3 million dead Iraqis right now? The destabilization of states, a slave market in Libya. You can call it fascism, but that's neoliberalism. So I'm not saying fascism is better than neoliberalism. I'm saying those are two different evils. So the idea for you to just randomly compare those two, I'm like, what are you talking about? You know what Joe Biden has done? He is responsible for the carceral state that we live in. He wrote the crime bill. He advocated for the death penalty for anything other than jaywalking. He said that on the Senate floor. I'm not making this up. So if you want to just blindly compare it to another ideology, Joe Biden is responsible for the destruction of the black community. Like, when you support NAFTA and these trade deals, who are hurt the most in those trade deals? It's the same thing that happened to black wealth when they was going after the unions in the Reagan era. So when they go after unions and they go after working class establishments, those actually hurt the black working class the most. And that's what Joe Biden has done his entire career with the crime bill and the bankruptcy bill. So this is the short-sightedness of liberals and progressives who apologize for Joe Biden because their brain is so short-sighted they can't even see the destruction that neoliberalism is responsible for. And they said we got to vote for the lesser of two evils. How is what I just described the lesser of two evils? How? He's still going after the free press. He's still doing the same thing as Donald Trump did when it comes to Julian Assange. He's still supporting the coup in Venezuela. He still recognized Juan Guaido as an illegitimate leader. Mm-hmm. So these are the same forces of oppression that Trump prompted that Joe Biden is doing, but they call it the lesser of two evils. You know why they do that? They call it the lesser of two evils because it's not affecting their community. The white streamer who makes $200,000 a year, the New York Times journalist who makes God knows $500,000 a year. Those people are not harmed by Joe Biden policy, so they write op-eds like, Joe Biden's not that bad a guy. Meanwhile, the cops are killing us every fucking day. Like literally, right when they announced that Derek Chauvin was going to get convicted, right when they announced that there was a police killing. What was that? The black teenager, right? Right when they were like, oh, everything is great now, bro. Dude, before the end of the day, there's probably going to be another one. Before the end of the week, at least. I can't even keep track of all the names now.
I do want to talk.
Go ahead. I talked to RJ.
I do want to clear up kind of what I said earlier about the scenario I was talking about where you have organizations that generally strike to do protests, but what happens if a state and a state's government isn't as sympathetic to the strategy of really embarrassing a government to do something that they didn't want to do in the first place? And some people in the comments did correct me. There are plenty of instances in which that have happened, so I do want to apologize and make that quick correction. So I guess my question to the rest of you is what do we do when, let's say, the United States government and a state government, we do the right thing, we protest, we general strike, we do everything in our power to try to gain exposure to a state about what we feel is doing wrong, and they're no longer sympathetic for it. And one strategy, which I believe they do, is they do manufacturing consent. So they smear us saying, oh, well, see, you guys are too far lefties, or you guys really don't know what's going on. This is what we're doing behind the scenes. And I feel like they're using the progressive politicians as the terms of that to mask the movement and make it even harder for us to get what we want. So I guess my question to you guys is, what do we do then if the government really is no longer sympathetic to these type of movements, even if we do protest? Because that's kind of my biggest fear of really what can continue after this.
I'm going to sound like Rome right now. Viva la revolution. That's the only thing I can think of. The thing is that, look, what did Kennedy say? He said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. So that being said, the thing is that, with the general strike, that is pretty much the last bastion of resistance that we would have before a violent revolution takes place. And the thing, I think it was one of the people that you interviewed, I forget his name, Thomas Frank.
Right.
I think he said something to the effect of, that's, general strike is right before a revolution. So the thing is if we get to a point where we actually successfully do a general strike, and if they aren't sympathetic to us by that point, it's going to break. It's about to drop. That's what's going to happen. And the thing is that a general strike, and like I was telling to a follower on Twitter, a general strike, one of the only ways it can actually be successful and be implemented is if people feel like they have nothing else to lose. And if people have nothing else to lose, and the state or the federal government is still not sympathetic to them, then guess what? Then the shit is going to hit the fan. And that's what's going to happen. I have nothing else to say. I wish I can give a better answer than that. But the thing is that every single time in these United States, when we have gotten to that point, a revolution happens. Same thing that happened, basically in 1776. Every single time that we've actually had to fight for, like for instance, the Civil War, you know, uh, hell, the Civil Rights Movement. We've had to engage in some type of, physical conflict to actually get the things that we should have had a long time ago. I don't want it to happen, but the problem is that may be the necessary evil.
What's your thoughts, Nick?
Hit me with the question one more time.
I said, what do you? So let's say this is a hypothetical. So let's say a movement does a general strike, protests a lot, and the government, whether it's state or federal, still isn't sympathetic enough to the people in which we could make them do something that they wouldn't want to do otherwise. What do you think we should do, or what do you believe can be done? So it's kind of the question.
It's dependent on what community you're talking to. Because I saw some discussion on Black leftist Twitter, and we got to be kind of honest with the situation right now. And this is why I come to the conclusion I came with. When you look at the state of Black America right now, politically on the national level, we're pretty screwed. We're not in a good position right now because you have. I'm glad that you have a lot of different communities that have policies being pushed on their demand, but there's nothing in terms of what will help the Black community being advocated for. So I wrote a piece about how when you look at Medicare for All, that's the most pro-Black policy you can advocate for because the state of the healthcare system in America is killing Black Americans. We have a life expectancy that's like 6-7 years lower than white men, and it's continuing to drop. Our infant mortality rate is 4 times higher than white women. We're being killed by our healthcare system because people don't go to the doctor because it's too expensive. Meanwhile, despite that, we have a president that can't even uphold the promise that is already a shitty compromise of a compromise. So they don't even support Medicare for all. There was a comment. I'll see if I can find it real quick. They were like, he said only 11 Democratic senators are on record for supporting Medicare for all as of today. 11 senators of the Democratic Party, the so-called pro-Black party, don't support what I call, and I wrote in great detail, why it's the most pro-Black policy. And he continued to say, this Kami Hilliger, they've been leaving great comments all day. We don't have a Joe Manchin, a Sinema Biden problem. We have a Democratic Party problem. And big shout out to you because I seen you leaving great comments. That's another great one because that kind of back up the point I'm making here. So I'm not trying to be doomy and gloomy because I got a solution to this, but I want people to wake up and stop being delusional. So once again, we don't have what's the Black version, like someone in power, like an actual senator that will go back for Black issues the same way that Joe Manchin, Chris Sinema will go to back for Wall Street because they voted against and they denied a living wage for Americans. They denied a $15 minimum wage, and then after that they got a Wall Street speaking gig, and they gained money from Wall Street, and they know that's their allies in the Senate. My question to you guys is, what is our version of that? And once again, we can only speak on behalf of our communities, but I would span it even more. I was spanning like what the Latino version of that, what the indigenous people version of that. What's the rural poor white version of that, really? But for the sake of the segment, once again, I'm only going to speak on behalf of my community. We are the Fred Hampton leftists. So what's the Black community equivalent of a Joe Manchin? It doesn't exist. It does. I'm sorry, guys. My friend Sky has been breaking it down on Twitter. I'm very glad to see her profile explode because she tell you guys are getting fucking sheep herded, and you guys are having false hope for no reason putting all your effort into electoral politics, which is essentially caping and giving jobs to millionaires. That's what you're doing. You think that's going to actually save our community? When has that happened? You have people who are like, oh, you guys got so much expectation of Joe Biden. The Democrat Party, they do their best for Black Americans, ignoring the fact that racial income inequality got worse under Biden and Barack Obama. It's going to get worse under Joe Biden right now. I guarantee you, with the policies that he has right now, it's going to get worse. We got to wait about 5 to 6 years. That's how long it takes. Because those op-eds on Obama was being read later, once they did analysis of the wealth of the Black Americans over the last few years. So we gotta wait until like 2016, 2027. But I guarantee you, with the neoliberal capitalist policies that they're implementing, it's only going to get worse. And then when that happens, just like we doing today, unfortunately, I'm gonna be there to tell you guys I told you so. Because I warned you guys about letting the establishment use Trump to fearmonger you, to vote for a guy who's been supportive of Jim Crow policy his entire career. The bare minimum, which he ran on, by the way, is decriminalizing marijuana. I don't like decriminalization. I'm a supporter of legalization. So that's a compromise of a compromise already. Mm-hmm. And then they just said, we can't decriminalize marijuana, which you can easily do with a stroke of a pen. We can't do that because we're so busy working on behalf of Americans. We're so busy working on behalf of Americans, we can't end the fucking Jim Crow system, the new Jim Crow system that's going on. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and a lot of AOC steps now, they're so dumb, they don't even realize they're being bullshitted too. And then they think, the ruling class, they think these people are dumb. So when you hear Joe Biden and Kamala Harris say stuff like, oh, sorry, we can't decriminalize marijuana because we're too busy. What? Who is that for? Who would believe in that shit? They think you're a dumb. And honestly, a lot of resist Twitter, they are. Sorry. So anyway, back to the question. Answer your question. We need to focus on our communities. I talked to a lot of my good friends on Twitter. It may seem like a pipe dream now, but socialist communities, communist communities where we take care of each other. That's the only benefit of any sort of capital in me. I'm a straight anti-capitalist. I'm not materialistic. The only value of resources for me is freedom. So I think that's what we should focus on. We're not going to have any victory electorally. Sorry, guys, to burst your bubble. If we do, it's going to take 15 to 20 years when the demographics change. And by then, climate change will be too late. So sorry, guys. That's the reality of the situation. Bernie was our last chance. So what we got to do right now, we got to focus on building communities, social communes, and make life easier for your neighbor because it's not going to come from the government. Sorry.
Yeah, let's all just build a socialist commune in Nevada since the Democrats already left. Yeah. So let's just all move to Nevada.
I'm down. I heard Peru is a pretty good state too.
Yeah. So, and we have one last topic. I want JB's input on this. Apparently, there's forced to vote discourse part 2000 because our friend Brianna Joy Gray, she put out a tweet the other day about forced to vote and some of its misconceptions and some of why some people aren't for it and why it could have been implemented better. Okay. JB, what are your thoughts on it overall? If you've watched the video and why do you believe this is continuing to be brought up 24/7?
I think that is necessary to continue to be brought up 24/7. Because forced to vote is a strategy that should be implemented whenever possible. The reason being is because, like I said in one of my tweets earlier, that there will never, ever, ever, ever be a perfect time to try to implement something. You cannot ask your way to Medicare for all. You cannot ask your way to a Green New Deal. You have to demand it. And the only way to do that is carrots and sticks or making sure that you force the vote. You make it so that it threatens them so that they have to acquiesce to your demands for something that is tangible. The problem is that you have some people who are too fucking comfortable and then they go, oh, we can wait. The people who are typically for forcing the vote are people that have a sense of urgency and are like, we cannot wait. This is the whole reason why forced to vote was so important, because those of us who don't have health insurance, look, I got a boyfriend. He has no health insurance, period. Nothing. So if something happens to him, then what? Many of us are just, a sickness or some type of tragic event away from maybe losing our jobs or something like that. And, a lot of these policies are just the bare minimum, the floor. So, yeah, I think that next time, if there's some crucial vote that has to be done, like, I don't know, like a debt ceiling or something like that, yeah, hold it up. Take it hostage and then say, look, unless we get these tangibles for these people, unless we get these, then no, we're not going to do it. And we're going to block it.
And I have the actual clip that everyone was freaking out about. So I'll share that for everyone right now, actually.
Please do.
Just for some contextual purposes. So give me a second.
So, the funny thing is, you have a lot of people who think force the vote was a bad idea, which makes no sense because I explained earlier on how force the vote was literally a 2019 DSA strategy that both Ilhan Omar literally endorsed the idea last year. And then
I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what happened earlier on this year that wasn't discussed enough that I covered on my show? Cory Bush and a few members in Democratic Congress, they forced a vote on whether we should give voting rights for convicted felons. And that was a great move. I'm very happy that Cory Bush has done that because she did what we advocate for. That's an important issue, restoring voting rights to felons. So she forced a vote on that issue, and it failed. It failed. Over half of Democrats voted against restoring voting rights and ending the new Jim Crow. Isn't that amazing? So now, how I like to frame issues. So what I like to say is now we have over half of the Democratic Party that is against voting rights. So they're like, oh, look at the Georgia voting law. Isn't that so crazy? Like, bro, you guys are not for democracy either. Joe Biden is responsible for how many millions of Americans losing their voting rights over the last few years, the last few decades. And then Cory Bush forced a vote to restore those voting rights that Joe Biden is responsible for taking away. And then Democrats voted against it. And then they want to pretend they're the pro-democracy party. But that's an important takeaway, and that's why I used to attack the Democratic Party on, because Cory Bush forced a vote. So since she forced a vote, we know what Democrats are full of shit when they say they are fighting for democracy. That's the value in the strategy. One of many values of the strategy. So how can Cory Bush and people who are sympathetic to them be supportive of her doing that, which I am, but they are against forced to vote for Medicare for all? I'll just leave you guys with that nugget because it doesn't make any sense to me, right?
Right. And then I got the clip right here. And the whole message too, the other prominent forced to vote people were saying is look, it's not just for Medicare for all. If you want to come in and add as many of our list to it as you want, get the whole list. Don't just negotiate yourself down before you get to the table. Add anything else you want. That's what a lot of people are saying. But here's the clip, and we'll play it for you guys. It's about 2 minutes. We'll play it in the entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, does anyone hear it?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay, 1 second. Let me try it again.
Yeah.
1 second.
Okay, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I forgot to. Every time I have to click, when I click present, I actually have to click share audio. So that's actually my fault. Okay, 1 second, everybody. It should work now. And okay, popped up on the screen. Yep, it's there. And I'll press play from its entirety.
Let's see if I can find some comments.
And here we go.
Epic, and I know that people are so frustrated that we keep going back to $15 minimum wage and force the vote, but those were important moments because the $15 minimum wage was reconciliation. It was a 50 vote situation, and that's why there was so much importance attached to it. And force the vote was so important because it was where Nancy Pelosi has so much control over all of these process issues, could actually be forced to do some of the things that would have enabled the process to be smoother here, to have agreed to having committee meetings, to agree to the committee appointments that the progressives never actually got, to agree to rule changes around PAYGO and the like that were only done in a partial piecemeal manner, despite how they've been celebrated. And those moments mattered. And knowing how much, in retrospect, in particular, as powerless as we feel now, how much potential was in those moments really makes you think about why there was so much seemingly coordinated pushback against even having a conversation about how to design a strategy around those moments. And when you look at the obstacles we're up against now, and the things that some members of our left community were saying back then, like, we just don't have enough time to figure it out. That was your main objection to force the vote. Oh, it's going to be hard to organize in a short time frame. Well, there's no possibility of anything now. Was it harder to try to put together some pressure around force the vote in a few weeks, or is it harder to try to move for a general strike or mass protests in West Virginia to get Joe Manchin or whomever to really seriously consider the filibuster? There's a real like scale issue here, and it all just starts to feel like, I don't know. I mean, it's just gaslighting on gaslighting on gaslighting.
What was interesting is when she posted this, when you see the response, no one was addressing the points at all. And these people, I'm not even interested in really giving them that much of benefit of doubt no more. People, I was talking to some friends earlier. I want people need to understand that if you was against this policy, which one I wrote that Medicare for all the most pro-black policy that you can advocate for, and you are against doing anything you can to push Overton window left on that, the Bernie movement was a giant movement of people. But we got to come to the conclusion that a lot of those people that was in that movement, they're not really fighting on behalf of our communities. They are just fighting behalf of what they think is just they just politically coasting because they're comfortable, they're fine. I talked to the RJ, but that's what I saw when I saw those people pushing back on her. Because none of them was attacking her on the merits of arguments. It was more like straw mans and attacks. So I'm done trying to win those people over. I said earlier, my focus on winning non-voters, people who are the independents, people who are not operatives of the Democratic Party, because there's a large segment of society that we can win over. That we continue to win those over every day, right, RJ?
Yeah. So let's dig into this. So I do agree that we need general strikes, we need mass protests, we need mass organizations, and yada yada yada. Yes, they do take a long time. Yes, we should still do them. But the whole argument too of why force the vote was it was a quick and easy strategy where you don't necessarily need all of that, but it could still have the same effect. It's taking advantage of a political system and structure put in place. If you look at the core critiques from the beginning, it was like, look, progressives, due to the slim majority that the Blue Dogs Democrats dug themselves into, you now have the power. If you're in the House, you have potentially 7 to 15 progressives that's all it takes to crush. It depends on the type of legislation to crush it in the House to prevent their Senate from even voting on it. And even Bernie Sanders has that power. And in fact, I'm giving Bernie Sanders a lot more credit than I do the House because he has used his power a lot more. For instance, Bernie Sanders being the budget chairman, he himself put the $15 minimum wage on the Senate floor for it to be voted on. The Blue Dog Dems, Republicans came together to crush it. Now, you could now too, the funniest part is Bernie was fighting to keep it in the bill itself. So if the bill stayed inside the budget reconciliation bill, it would have kept a 51 vote threshold needed. The problem is the corporate Democrats filibustered their own fucking bill to raise the threshold to 60 so they can have an excuse not to do it. And it was still good that Bernie Sanders put it on the floor themselves to expose what the Democrats were doing. So that was great. All we're saying is the House progressives, you, by having a solid contingency block, you actually avoid scrutiny much better than Bernie. Because if it's Bernie by himself, the entire mass media Democratic landscape will fucking crush him for it. But you as House progressives, you can share blame. AOC isn't the one that has to have all the vitriol. But if you guys come together and say, hey, look, we're going to stop a bill for this policy. We're going to stop for this one. If you all share blame, then it makes it easier to function as a contingency block. You know, and of course, people say, oh, well, the Tea Party, they had like 30, 40 members compared to the progressive 7 to 15. We recognize that. I understand that. I'm not going to debunk you for it. But the Tea Party movement themselves, they were much more able to be hated. And they shared the hatred amongst themselves way better than the House progressives do. And I really don't like, too, that, hey, you know, you're leaving her out to dry, AOC out to dry, even if she is wrong. But it does kind of help. It does kind of hurt the type of really movement if you're doing. I don't know if they're doing this strategy, but this is what people were saying that they could do to make it better to get these policies enacted. And that's kind of the message and the strategy of it overall.
So I just want to. I don't have to stay this long. I'll pass it right back to JB on this. I just want to propose a question to Erica. They said forced to vote wasn't going anywhere, and it was kind of ridiculous shot in the dark. So I'm not going to fight you. My question to you is, what is the downsides of having a national debate on the merits of single payer healthcare versus the insurance-based model based on employment, where a lot of people lost their jobs in the middle of a pandemic? Where exactly do we lose in that? To start a debate on that. Do you know how foolish the people that are arguing against single payer healthcare and arguing in favor of employment-based healthcare will look? You know, Joe Biden got away. He got away with backing away a public option. If we had forced to vote and there was a national debate on healthcare, that would be, we would have had a spotlight on that. And we're like, okay, you guys are not for Medicare for all. What happened to that public option thing he was talking about? So my question to you is, where exactly do we lose when a debate like this is started? I don't think we lose, right? Because we are in the right. Medicare for all is supported by a vast majority of American people. And then we look at these Congress, their approval ratings is in the toilet. I mean, you had Nancy Pelosi spearheading the argument against a popular policy when she is less popular than Donald Trump. So how is that going to go well for the establishment? I pass it to JB. I just wanted to put that thought out there. I just want you to consider that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, JB.
Yep. Forced to vote wouldn't have been a shot in the dark if the squad actually did it. Then it would have actually gained popularity. And the media would have had no choice but to cover it, because they would have said, oh, there's fracture in the Democratic Party. What's going on? Then next thing you know, people like, Jamal Bowman, AOC, Cori Bush, people like them would have went, on all the Sunday shows and said, well, look, the Democratic Party is, many of them are being divisive because 80% of Democrats actually want Medicare for all. We're just doing what the people want. And so they would have been able to do that instead, and that actually would have gained a lot more attention, and it wouldn't have been a shot in the dark. But unfortunately, because they refused to pick this up, even though it was originally a DSA strategy, and actually the fact that AOC and Ilhan Omar themselves talked about it as being a good strategy months prior, and now they're suddenly reneging on that, then you know what? That actually says more about them than it says about those of us who want the force to vote.
I just put the tweet in the chat, so you guys know what I'm talking about. Cause that's the tweet where let me read. I'll read it out loud. This is from March 2nd. Cori Bush. For the first time ever, the House took a vote on whether or not to end the cruelty of denying incarcerated people their right to vote. Our amendment didn't pass, but 97 Democrats voted with us. We will not stop fighting until we dismantle white supremacy on this forum. Which is, once again, I am supportive of this. My response to her, I was like, I'm glad you guys forced a vote on this issue. I'm glad you guys did that. But the funny thing is, I'm very interested in how she. Actually, I want to screen share this. I think this is important to share, and then I'll pass it to RJ. I don't know how long you guys plan to go, but
we could wrap up soon, actually.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm gonna make the last point. I'll pass it to you, RJ. So this is what I was referring to earlier. This is a tweet, so you guys see it. And this was my response. I said, I'm so glad you guys forced to vote on this, because I let you guys. That's essentially what they did. They forced to vote on this thing. It didn't pass, which is okay, because now we know the Democrats that didn't vote for it. But it's very interesting how Cori Bush framed it, because she said 97 Democrats voted for us. Why did she frame it that way instead of the way my friend Tamanisha John put it? She said, nice. Now we know less than half of House Democrats believe in voting, right? Because that's another way you can frame that. Instead of saying that 97 Democrats voted for us, you could easily just said that less than half of the Democrats believe in that and voted for that, right? I passed RJ because I wanted to try that because that's what I was referring to earlier. But that's something I want you guys to kind of consider.
Mm-hmm. Can I just add one more thing? And I think a lot of people who are anti-forced to vote on this, a lot of them are so focused on, well, it'll never pass. So what's the point? And the funny thing is that there's still a victory even if it doesn't pass, because now you know who is going to be actually against it, so that you can actually campaign against them, and then you can actually make them the enemy. Or you could, use your leverage to pressure and say, well, this person, say for instance, Val Demings, my representative, well, she doesn't support Medicare for all, and so you can go on all the shows, and then next thing you know, it puts the fire underneath her. Well, do you not support Medicare for all? Do you not support universal health care for everybody? And then that would probably force her hand, and even in a cynical way, to save her seat, but she still would have ended up voting for Medicare for all, even cynically. I don't care if they're cynically doing it or if they're doing it, out of the goodness of their hearts. I don't care. Either way, if it gets voted on, fine. And so this is one of the tools that forced to vote does, is that it will force the hand of Democrats to be able to actually push for something, even if they're not really for it, because they want to just keep their seats. It's using their ambition and their careerist mindset against them so that we get what we actually need.
I agree. And I see some comments in the chat about some objections to it, saying that, and look, I said this from the jump, like I agree with using grassroots organizations. So and the argument too that, you can't use really social media in general as a shortcut. Well, social media and mainstream media in general has been used by the establishment all the time to get electoral prowess. I mean, have we seen what happened with COVID and how MSNBC, CNN, many of these pundits on Twitter as well were propping up Joe Biden, making him seem like he was the greatest thing since sliced bread? That has an effect too. I mean, newspapers, the mail, that has always throughout American history has been important tools for elections as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole point of this argument in general is like people are desperate. So yes, we're building up our grassroots movements, doing everything you can.
Mm-hmm.
But we should try multiple different strategies all at once to see what sticks, to see what works. So on the left, we should be willing to try everything we can.
Mm-hmm.
So you get what we want done.
Oh, exactly. And by the way, forced to vote was actually proposed by grassroots. So therefore, to say that we should be going through the grassroots strategy, that was a grassroots strategy. So so if you're really paying attention, then you'll realize that forced to vote was actually something that was done from the ground up. I just, we only have a few more minutes left. Nick, what do you have, final words, and what do you have coming up this week that we need to prepare ourselves for, because I'm anticipating what you got.
We had a lot of good discussion on forced to vote today. I'm very interested in discussing this with Justin Jackson with CJ on Tuesday. Tuesday is going to be a very interesting day because we're going to have Justin on for the takeover, and then we're going to have Jordan Charlton on to discuss some of his report and his thoughts on the direction of the left as well. So I'm very excited to have that conversation. And one of the new bomb throwers that's kind of rose to prominence on Black Left Twitter, we had her on the show before, Sky Daddy, and Red from Twitter, she had a viral clip where she pretty much spread the ideology that we've been preaching on our show as well. Well, our policy was not only hold the black working class, it'll hold the white working class as well. You guys are voting for your oppressors the same way that black people vote for their oppressors when they vote for the Democratic Party. I love that take. I talked to her and we had a great conversation. So I'm gonna have her and Sky Daddy on Wednesday, and we're gonna discuss some theory. And I know Scott Daddy has a lot of words to a lot of these people who are obsessed with electoral politics. So we're going to discuss that. Can we just have a slight variation? So me and Scott Daddy are good friends, but we are such good friends that we were willing to discuss some things we disagree with about. So we're going to actually have a minor debate about that. So that's going to be interesting. So anyway, that's what I'm excited for this week. And then we got more to come as well. So hit the bell. We upload every day. And I greatly appreciate all of the support this show has received recently. So,
Thank you, Nick. We ready for your show? Okay.
And make sure. By the way, I was telling you guys leave a like as well because that's help us out with visibility. And if you guys have anything, we Patreon, Fred Hampton Leftist, support the show because I'm very excited with the direction we're taking and the kind of guests we are about to have on our show. And you guys are very early on this ride, and you guys are like the OG supporters. So anything that was help us out, we appreciate it. Either way, subscribe and check us out. Hope you guys enjoy the live.
Okay, thank you, Nick. RJ?
Tuesday evening, I'll be doing a pre-recorded session with your fellow co-host, your favorite leftist, Jackie Pose. Everybody know who she is. I'll be on her show, Nerdolitics. We'll be mixing politics with nerdy stuff. On that episode, I'll be talking about Avatar, The Last Airbender, and The Legend of Korra. So I'll be talking about the political instances that happen in their show and how it kind of relates to today's politics as well. My Friday show, I really don't have any guests yet. Push comes to shove, it'll just be me ranting about the world. So
I'll join you on Friday if you don't got guests. I'll try to join you Friday. We can shoot the shit. We can do
no problem. But other than that, it's pretty a chill week for me.
I can see if I can find a guest first because I got some people in the backlog. I can see if I can invite someone on Friday if you're fine with that. But we talk about it.
Just let me know.
Yeah, we talk about it.
Yep, that's all it for me. Back to JB.
Okay, next Sunday on Fred Hampton Leftist, we will be doing a crossover with the Vanguard podcast. This is something I'm going to be very excited for, and I want you guys to be here to stay tuned. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for this video because the YouTube algorithm don't like us. And look, you guys can always follow me on JB Font. And, I just want to show my appreciation and thank you guys for joining us here on the Sunday live version of Fred Hampton Leftist. My name is JB Font. This is RJ, and this is Nick.